Welcome back to the Coming Together podcast. This is Bradley Naragon, and today's podcast is called The Astrology of Evolution. And I'm with Marty Dixon and Jordyn Smith today. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we've got a lot of exciting charts for you, and a lot. This is actually going to be part one of we don't know how many parts. We're just going to see how long it takes to get through all this. So, and I'm gonna turn it over to Marty to share a screen here. Let me do this. Um, let's see. There we go. Okay, we should be able to have you get started.
As soon as I find share screen, here we go. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
We're good? Okay. All right. Let me get situated here. And I just am so grateful to be here. Thank you so much for the invite. I really, really appreciate it. And talking to both of your incredible young minds, it's really, really an honor and a privilege. I really appreciate your time. Two of my favorites, but I have a lot of favorites. Let me adjust my mic real quick.
We feel the same way, Marty.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
you guys are wonderful. It's such an opportunity. I really, really appreciate it. And is the volume okay? The speaking volume? Okay. So, as far as I know, Bradley came up with an idea for the astrology of revolution. So Jordyn and I just sort of followed suit and did the best we could to honor his vision and what he wanted to say. So it's so incredibly interesting to me. I love working with people like you that are so intuitive because I'm 100% intuitive and I just kind of roll with everything, whatever comes my way. And here we are right before the 4th of July. I mean, 4th of July is going to be um, 5 days away because we're the 29th right now. So how these things happen, I don't know, but they just do. I mean, Bradley had an idea and everything just kind of, coalesced and fell into place. Jordyn is the glue that brought us together, and here we are. So let's see what happens. And before we begin, let's see here, bear with me a moment. I just want to say that astrology elucidates, and that's why we're all here. It helps us to see. It certainly doesn't create life, it just reflects life. And it helps us to see. It just answers a lot of questions, as everyone knows. And Jeffrey, I studied with Jeffrey Wolf Green in 93 and 94 in near Sacramento, California, a town called Fair Oaks, California. It was a great Pluto 1 class, Pluto 1 and Pluto 2. And one thing he taught us is, he's a history buff, to say the least. And he reads history a lot, to say the least. And he taught us that we learn from history. What we look at when we look at we can read history and then look at astrology, and it's going to reflect the lesson to us. It's called observation and correlation, as we all know. And when we're doing any reading or working with any person, place, or thing, if we observe and look into it and sort of meditate on it and get an aha, and then look at the astrology, that's what I do. Then look at the map. It's sort of like reading the book and then seeing the movie. Then you look at the real map and you see what's really going on and you get the aha and it computes in the brain up here. It's very, very Aquarian. And he also taught us likewise, if you look at history and then look at the map of history and look at the correlations, the astrological correlations, if you likewise it's similar to studying the south and north nodes in a chart, in any chart. Whereas if you're looking at a north node and say, what does this mean? What does this mean? Look at the south node. It's going to lead you there. It's a story, it's a path, and we can learn from it, and we can become enlightened and elucidated and elevate ourselves and really help each other and really be at times investigative astrologers and really look deeply into things and see why they happened and where they're leading us and what the mystery is. Okay. So, I
Yes.
just Go ahead, Bradley.
Oh, just saying yes. Yes. Thank you.
We're investigators and trying to think of the right word. We're detectives in a sense. And I happen to be a Taurus. I think Jordyn, you're a Scorpio.
No, I'm a Capricorn, but I have
Oh,
a lot of Scorpio.
isn't that interesting? Because yeah, you come across as a Scorpio to me. And Bradley, which, if you don't mind, what?
Oh, Aquarius.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of thought so, but I wasn't sure, and it's good to know these things. So with Taurus, what they say about Taurus in terms of uh, detective work or investigative work, Taurus is like a dog with a bone, and Taurus likes to bury those bones. And what they say about people that are very scorpionic, like yourself, Jordyn, they like to dig those bones up.
Oh yeah. I'm
So here,
like the perpetual person in the Wizard of Oz who pulls back the curtain, you know, on who Oz is. That's me.
so here we are, and it's just fate. It's just fate, so to speak. But it's an interesting mix, and there's so many other people that I hope that I can join with, and you can join with, and we kind of all came together as a result of Astro Speak, from what I can remember. And there's some incredible people in that group. I just love that group. So I hope that
Yeah.
it continues. I really hope that these kinds of encounters continue. So, one thing I want to talk about, I love to talk about history, and I'm going to try to just limit myself, Bradley, because I'm like a horse coming out of a gate. I just go for it. I'm like a locomotive. And you really have to tell me to um, stifle myself because I should have brought a sock or something, but I have to stop at some point. But I like to talk about history, and I really love to tell people that everything's a cycle, and we can learn. We can learn so much from it. And even if you go back 240 million years, that's when it is thought that our little galaxy is at the same point in our little solar system is at the same point in our galaxy in respect to the cosmos. It's hard. I don't have the graphics, and it's hard to understand. But our galaxy, our mother galaxy, with our solar system on the arm of Orion, it rotates, and every 240 million years, I can't do it that far, it comes back to the same spot. I don't know if people know that, but it fascinates my little brain, and I like to tell people that. And we are on an outpost of our mother galaxy, the Milky Way, on a spiral arm called Orion. So we are way far away from the core galaxy and all the other solar systems. And you'll wind me up and get me going, but it's thought that we are possibly a binary solar system, and that there's a lost star that are we're attracted to, and the movements of our sun is pulled toward, that actually creates precession. But that's a theory put forth by Walter Cruttenden in a book called Lost Star of Myth and Time, Binary Star Theory. I'm not going to get into that other than to say that we do make a full revolution of our solar system in our galaxy about every 240 million years. And people think, oh, we're coming back to the same spot. Well, the point is, we live within cycles, within cycles, within cycles. And that's a grand cycle. That's one that we can sort of grasp. But we're never at the same point again. Any circle in space, anywhere, even in our solar system, is never the same. Once a solar return, like this time next year, June 29th next year, it's not going to be the same. It might be the same astrologically, but it's a different point in space. And even if I love to play with people's brains. My sister used to do this with me. I grew up in the early 60s when Carl Sagan was very prominent. Do you remember Carl Sagan?
I mean, I know who he is. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Probably.
when we get a chance,
Little
maybe
bit.
I'll.
Little bit.
But
Yeah.
he was a astro. He was a astronomer and an astrophysicist, and he taught a lot about our galaxy and what's out there and beyond. And of course, that's very Sagittarian type stuff, and a lot of what Jeffrey taught, because I love deep space and astronomy. But to understand astrology, you need to go way back, and you need to understand deep space, because we are a reflection of that. We're a microcosm of that. Um, but the thing about being on the spiral arm of Orion, this little solar system that we call our solar system, our home, um, even though it cycles every 240 years and comes back to the same point in respect to our galaxy, in respect to the backdrop of our galaxy and the cosmos, it's never the same. It's going to be at a different point in the universe because our galaxy travels. So that's my whole point. Everything's a circle, but the circles travel. They all travel, and they're never the same again. But we can try to learn a little bit from them. So we're going to go into a little bit of history here.
Oh, Marty, you just started us with a galactic revolution. One revolution around the galaxy. I love that. I didn't. Thank you.
Well, I know it sounds crazy, but I think it's interesting to know that this point in time where we are right now with everything that's going on, it's a lot bigger. And it's been going on for a long time. And like I said, even though we're not at the same place that we have been millions of years ago, we are in similar circumstances. And there are similar energies frequenting and circulating around us that are going to give echoes of the past. And just real quickly in terms of yugas, I just want to talk about yugas. I'm just going to mention it. Those of you know about the Yuga Wheel or the Great Wheel. It's again something that Walter Cruttenden teaches in a lecture called The Great Year that maybe we could go into at some later date. We have been in what's called the Kali Yuga, which is considered a very dark time in this, I think it's a 24,000 year cycle. I'll have to look it up again, but we have been going through a very dark night, so to speak, in terms of civilization and mindsets and consciousness. And we're now entering into the first degrees of the Dwapara Yuga, which is a more enlightened yuga. And Ari Moshes did a wonderful YouTube video interview with Walter Cruttenden that I'm going to try to put in the references, and I will just mention that if you Google Ari Moshes YouTube, I think the name of the YouTube, I'll look it up again and I'll see it at the end, and I'll look at it during the break. I think it's called Lost Star of Myth and Time. And it shows how even though we've come from there's cycles within cycles within cycles, and even though we've come through a very dark yuga cycle, so to speak, we're now entering a more enlightened period. And of course, that'll go back around again, and it'll be different. But it's interesting to know that we're kind of on the upswing now, and you can kind of see that. I know that you two can, and so many other incredible astrologers can see that. With Pluto entering Aquarius, we have a lot of the same old problems, but there's a little bit higher level of enlightenment or understanding or conception. Yeah, a little bit more sinking in, a little bit more light penetrating to the synapses of the brain through the third eye, so to speak. So there's that, and I'll try to, and then one more thing that I'd really like to mention real quickly is in the tarot. If you're familiar with classic tarot, there's a card called the World, and I have it in an older lecture that I'll try to reference as well if I can get my references in. But it shows the 4 fixed signs, and it shows Aquarius, Taurus, Scorpio, and Leo. And it says during these ages, Pluto has not only ingressed into Aquarius, but we are in the beginning stages of the Aquarian age, as we all know. And a lot of people confuse the two. But I'll just try to say it again. Pluto entered Aquarius, and I think it was February of 2022, officially, in a tropical sense. And then we are in the age of Aquarius in terms of ages, which tend to run about 2,500 years, so to speak. So we're Pluto into Aquarius, and we're entering the age of Aquarius as we speak. And those 4 fixed signs in terms of the tarot are legendary or explained to have been 4 areas of the zodiac where we enter a new age, where enlightenment can enter in, the most amount of light can come in. And that's another lecture, but I just want to mention that we're really on the upswing in terms of opening our minds and gaining light upon the brain or perceiving light through the third eye and coming to a lot of ahas and a lot of downloads and a lot of revelation. And that's for sure. Okay, moving right ahead here. Let's see what we've got. Bear with me. Let me see if I can get this to work. Okay. This is my own note to myself, so it didn't get edited, but one thing that I want to know, it's okay. One thing I want to mention is that I believe that Bradley was talking about the North Node of Neptune, which is Leo.
Oh, right. Yeah, we were talking about that. Yeah.
And a lot of people what amazes me, people pick up on this, concurrently, and sometimes we know about each other and sometimes we don't. But the North Node of Neptune, the North Planetary Node, is actually Leo, the South Planetary Node being Aquarius. And if you think about that, that kind of predicates everything. It predicates this lecture and everything that I know about, because to me, a lot of people talk about, Pluto being a main planet. But the fact of the matter is that Pluto and Neptune share an orbit. And I'll try to show that in a graphic toward the end of this, the time that I have. And so they work together, and they're both co-conspirators in terms of their north nodes and leading us and creating great effective change upon the earth. So Leo governs the heart, as we all know, and there's a point in human development of the fetus where we are a human heart and nothing else. And what's really incredible about that is that what amazes me is that we're a human heart, we're just that, and then everything grows out of it, the body grows out of it, but the first thing to come out of the human heart is the tongue. And so I think it's important to communicate clearly and well. I'll leave it at that. Walk your talk, so to speak, speak your truth. It's communication, especially during these times right now, and I'm sure one of you will touch on it. It's very important to not only think clearly, but communicate clearly and really say what you mean. It's real important to be true to your words now and speak from the heart. So there's also a point in the human development when we're first forming and we're just one cell, and then we divide and become two cells. It's called a vesica Pisces. And that's the whole, to me, that's the whole God part of creation, is that Pisces part where one cell becomes two. And it looks like a Pisces, kind of like a Pisces sign. In that development, there's a point in that development where cells are dividing and growing, where there's scientists have noticed there's an electric spark that takes place. It's a millisecond, and it's infinitesimal. I can't say that word. It's very small, but they say this electric spark that they've noticed in the process of cell division in early life is as bright as any form of lightning. And so if you think about that, and you think about the North Node of Neptune, what I'm trying to say is it is Leo. It is the spark of life. It is the human incarnation. Where does the spark come from? Does it come from the sun? Does it come from God? We don't know, but it happens. So that North Node of Neptune is amazing to me. It's our humanity, which is the South Node of Aquarius, and it's our humanness, our human life here on Earth is what the North Node of Neptune is all about. And it has been in, I have the note somewhere, but it's been the North Node of Neptune for at least 1,000 years. And it's going to be the North Node for all of us on Earth for at least 500 to 1,000 more years. And I'll try to look up the numbers and give that to you. And so what's happening right now is the sun, the very nature of the light coming from the sun is penetrating our pineal gland and changing our thoughts and opening it up and giving us more of a cosmic perspective and more of an open mind and more of our place in the universe. And it has to do with the nature and quality of the light coming from the sun in these times, that it's penetrating the frontal lobe and the pineal gland and creating melatonin that stimulates dream production and meditation and revelation and epiphany. So my best advice to anybody is get out there in nature and just be receptive, just listen. We talked a little bit about precession. We talked about the fixed stages, the current nodes, again, where we come from and where we're learning. It's so important during these times to look at critical thinking and how we take in information, how we process it and think for ourselves and re-examine what we think we know and believe, because believe me, everything's getting blown wide open right now, and we need to be very selective and very discerning in what we believe, and also open-minded at the same time. So it's sort of a tightrope that we're walking, but we can do it. And don't be afraid of change, and it's a time to be fiercely independent with the North Node in Aries. And it's good to be a heretic sometimes. So Pluto has ingressed to tropical Aquarius, and it will be there for the next 20 years. And I don't know if you folks can see this. Let me try to arrange this. Okay, so Pluto has ingressed to Aquarius right here. And I can't see my chart too well.
Can I ask a question, Marty?
Absolutely.
So with this is January 20th, 2024 chart, and Pluto had already dipped in before, and then it leaves again. I guess like this is kind of a question that I've had is like when a planet goes in and out a few times, like the outer planets do, like which ingress chart is like the chart to use?
Well, that's a really great question. I think the first one, and what I happen to have here, let me get my pictures back. What I happen to have here, interesting, Bradley, is actually 2024. So that's how I looked it up, and so that's the information that I got and used in this video. But it actually, the first ingression, I believe, was February 20th of 22, and I think you mentioned that to us initially. So I would say the first one. But be that
Thanks.
as it may,
Yeah.
yeah, be that as it may, this is a chart of, I couldn't see the whole chart on my screen, so I couldn't see the date, but thank you for that. This is January of 2024, and it also coincided with the sun's ingression to Aquarius, which is really a bell ringer. I mean, that means a lot to an astrologer to know that that happened at the same time, and it really kind of gets our antennas going up, saying, "Hey, this is really important. You know, pay attention to this." And then, of course, it sextiles Pluto. Saturn sextiles Pluto, and in the beginning degrees of mutual reception with nature, Neptune in Pisces. Oh, I lost my cursor. Here we go. Neptune is in the culminating degree of Pisces. The North Node is in Aries, of course, right here, applying pressure to Chiron, because the North Node is going retrograde and Chiron is going direct. So they're really hurtling toward each other. Jeffrey said that the North Node can apply pressure to a planet in a good way. Awakening new self-healing abilities for those courageous enough to follow their instincts, leave the pack, and think, act, and express independently. I think that's something that all of us are going to discuss over and over again. It's time to be bold and really, get away from the pack and step out and take some chances. See if I can get my thing to advance here. With me. Bear with me just one moment. Okay. So, 5 days after Pluto entered Aquarius, occurred a full moon in Leo. And here you can see the full moon. Here you can see Pluto in Aquarius and the full moon in Leo. And I tend to work from lunation to lunation. So whatever's happening, whatever event that I see, I tend to look at the next lunation. So here's the full moon after Pluto entered Aquarius in the official date of January 20th, 2024. Along with Pluto's aggression to Aquarius right here, on a spiritual level, heart-centered awareness is seeping into the subconscious of those aware of the skies, their luminaries, and their significance. So with all of this going on in this full moon, those of us who know that the energy of Aquarius is something that is very subtle and seeps into our dream time and our subconscious time and our meditation. And so that the energy of Aquarius is seeping into us through the full moon, very much so, and entering into our consciousness. The energy of the full moon in Leo would be felt rather than realized. This literally sheds light on the significance of the Pluto to Aquarius ingression, and on a mundane level brings political issues of hierarchy and autocracy to a head. This is not a conscious transference, but the significance of the moon's lunations occurring close to any astrological event have been observed and recorded in some way by sky readers in every culture for as long as we know. We just happen to be old indigenous people or old sky watchers from, maybe 1,000 years ago, reincarnated. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius was between early 1777 to 1798, coinciding with the time of the French Revolution and the American Revolutionary War. The American Declaration of Independence was signed on July 4th in 1776. I think that was 165 years ago, but I don't have my little, it was either 164 or 165 years ago. I don't have my little calculator working right now. But it was 1776, and our nation witnessed a Pluto return between 2022 and 2023. Pluto to Aquarius full moon. See, we already did that. Bear with me. No, I already did that. That's strange. Oh, it didn't advance. On March 25th, 2024, there was an ingression to Aquarius. Bear with me just a moment. There was a lunar eclipse. So here we have Pluto to Aquarius. Right here, it's 1 degree now, and there's a lunar eclipse in Libra. Okay, here we go. Lunar eclipses can temporarily suspend the subconscious mind and memory and signal the immediate need for a superconscious approach to old dilemmas. Bear with me just one moment. Okay, well, it's basically this. Full moon in Leo. Oh, there was a full moon, and then there was a lunar eclipse. So we had gone from a full moon to the lunar eclipse on March 25th. And I'm not going to go into all of this, but it shows a need for renewed diplomacy amongst allies and strengthening possible amendments to the American Constitution and the assurance against any form of tyranny, Aries. And that's what I see in this signature right here with this lunar eclipse between the moon in Libra and the sun in Aries. Libra also stands for seeking balance and would highlight the need for renewed negotiations of peace talks amongst allies. The American War of Independence was part of the broader American Revolution, where the Continental Army, commanded by George Washington, defeated the British Army at the time. During the war, American forces had the support of French and Spanish allies and signed new treaties of American independence and alliance with both countries. And that's why I say I think that we're in a time when we're really going to start re-looking at the Constitution and writing amendments and perhaps correcting some of the wording in the Constitution to shore it up and strengthen what our forefounders had originally intended, because we are 165 years past that point, and we need to update it, so to speak, so it's very clear. And I think that's what's going to be happening within the next year. In this current eclipse, lunar eclipse chart, Neptune is balsamic to the sun right here, which is conjunct the North Node in Aries right here. In a national sense, a unification of allies is needed to combat possible dictatorship and to help restore peace here and abroad.
Marty, by the way, it's 224 years, I believe. I looked it up for you. 248.
Oh, thank you very much. I was
You're
talking
welcome.
Neptune. Thank you so much, Jordyn.
You're welcome.
248 years. Thank you, Jordyn. I do that. I'm dyslexic. Neptune on the brain.
You said you wanted a calculator, so I thought I'd be yours.
Yeah, yeah, thank you so much, Jordyn. I really appreciate it.
No
I'm
problem.
not good with numbers, and it takes me a while. It stops my brain from spinning. So here we have the total eclipse on April 8th, as you all probably remember. And total solar eclipse. And here's the sun and the moon together, total solar eclipse. Chiron's there. It's got a little stellium in Aries. This eclipses the conscious mind and unleashes the subconscious, the dreams, the revelations, the downloads, and the epiphany. Neptune, so to speak. So whenever we have a lunar eclipse followed by a solar eclipse, that's really a doozy because that really highlights and ignites the subconscious brain. And that's what's happening. It doesn't always happen in that order, the lunar before the solar, but when it does, it really gets whatever's trying to penetrate the fortress here up here in the brain. It really gets it through, and it really gets it through well. Uranus here is leading a stellium in Pisces, this stellium in Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. And Uranus accelerates anything it touches. And this is another signature that's just fascinating to me. I'll just say real quickly that when the Ukraine war started, I think it was 2022, February of 2022, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong. When that started, the download that I got big time that I didn't understand was we must save the earth. And I'm thinking, well, there's these conflicts going on, there's this war going on, and all I got was conservation. And I realized at one point, see, here I go like a motorboat. I belong to a group of psychics and mediums. I myself am a medium, and we see things. And sometimes we see things that we sort of agree upon. Sometimes we see things that we don't agree upon. But when the majority see something that we agree on, we know that it's real. And I can tell you right now that there will not be a nuclear war. We do not need to fear that because there are extraterrestrial forces that will stop it. And that's the truth. There are extraterrestrial forces that will not allow another nuclear war. And so when I was dreaming about conservation and the earth and all these, and this war was started and I didn't know what the dream was about, I realized our Mother Earth is all we have. Uranus, the expanded enlightenment, the higher mind, the bigger picture, the perspective, and Jupiter right there urging on and encouraging the enlightenment of Aquarius or Uranus, and Taurus, the earth, of course. We have to come together at some point on some common ground and say, we as a species need to survive. We need food and land and water and air. And we can't, we've got to cooperate on some level or we're not going to have a home. And that's the bottom line. So
I think it's interesting that the south node of Neptune is ruled by that Uranus. And I think that a lot of people are getting, through their inner listening, that Taurus function, they're hearing what they're needing to do to have a Uranian lifestyle change in order to help do their due diligence here on the planet. That's something that I've been seeing. I just wanted to point that out.
That's wonderful, Jordyn, because a lot of people are seeing that. We're talking Neptune and we're talking universal consciousness, but a lot of that is very apparent in how this need to have a common ground and protect our earth and our resources or we won't be here anymore is really penetrating this fortress up here and letting us say we've got to find a way to get along. And the only way that I can conceive of that is we just need to keep negotiating with the wars that are going on. We need to keep at it and keep talking, keep communicating. Remember, the tongue comes out of the heart, and keep negotiating. We can't stop. We have to just keep working for peace and cooperation. Thank you for that, Jordyn. That's really wonderful. The North Node in Aries conjunct the Sun. Okay, here we go. Putting pressure on Venus, Neptune, Saturn, and Mars. Oh, here we go. Meaning that I lost my cursor. The North Node is applying pressure to Venus, Neptune, Saturn, and Mars, meaning it's moving retrograde. So the future, it's putting pressure on our relationships, and of course, Neptune, our consciousness, really helping to evolve these archetypes. And Saturn, everything that we've known from the patriarchy and what we believe to be real. Here we go. And Mars, which is our impetus or our desire or our impetus to change. Mars in Aries would be a tremendous impetus for peace and activists and people that are, anti-war demonstrators and the like. Saturn sextile to Uranus, expediting choices being made for the Earth and her conservation, or the next seven generations. this to work. So this is Valley Forge, moving right along here, and I don't know where we are at time-wise, Bradley, so.
We've got about 10 minutes left on this first part.
That's fine. So 246 years ago, and as Jordyn pointed out, a Pluto cycle is about 248 years. But 246 years ago, Pluto was at 0 degrees Aquarius. It ingressed to Aquarius on January 28th, 1778. And that's interesting to know because this is a map of February 16th of 1778 in Valley Forge. It's a tribute to the soldiers that General George Washington gave after the Valley Forge winter, when British forces tried to encircle the American army, or the trying to think what the name, the Continental Army at that time, and tried to starve them out. Well, what happened is George Washington, in his incredible enlightenment, he was a Pisces. He helped to conserve resources and encourage the men to just stay alive. We can do this. We can do this. And what's really interesting to me is that everybody thinks as Pisces as being so passive, but Pisces is right next to Aries. And when Pisces and Aries energies mix, Pisces can be an immovable force. It can be incredibly inspirational and motivational, because they're right together. And the understanding and the wherewithal of Pisces, once it turns into Aries energy, or Neptune goes to Aries, it becomes an unstoppable force. And it's like everything you know and everything that you've calculated and everything you can conceive of channeled into this very force of action to create great effective change. So what George Washington did there was he encouraged the troops to continue, and they outsmarted the British forces that were all around them, and they survived and they won that battle. And that was the one of the very decisive battles in the Revolutionary War, and helped bring it to an end. And I'll end with this. There's an inscription on the arch at Valley Forge in Pennsylvania that says that George Washington wrote to commemorate his soldiers, saying, "Naked and starving as they are, we cannot enough admire the incomparable patience and fidelity of the soldiery." And I think
Marty,
time out.
this chart is it's so fascinating because it's just such it's so full of the spirit of revolution. I mean, we've got a Pluto Mercury conjunction in Aquarius. There's Venus and Juno are in a conjunction in Aquarius. The sun's in Aquarius. This is February 16th, 1778. And then, of course, Uranus is conjunct its own north node in Gemini. So yeah, that's just, it's fascinating to grow up and learn about these things in school, and then now as I'm older and understand some of these lenses of astrology, to come back and really almost get a feel for that there was this spirit of revolution that was so alive then, that has carried through. That was just a huge part of the start of the United States.
I find it fascinating that in this chart, Chiron, yeah, it's in the 11th house, but it's at that 20-degree Aries mark, which ties into the eclipses you were talking about, Marty, because that was all of those energies were combust at, was it 19 degrees in one of the eclipses we just had?
I think that was a 19-degree Aries.
Yeah, where it's really speaking to similar seeds of this, right? Of like the imbalances of that were created in the here and now, that we're seeing echoes that stem from this in the past. Reminds me of that South Node in Libra right now. So many people are feeling angry because they're not being heard or listened to, and it's like these groups of people. And I feel like this chart is a really good representation that's pulling from the eclipses that we just had. It's like the past being seated in the present moment that's echoing some foretelling of the future, right? You know, and you can see it in some of these signatures, that it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, Marty, like how I'm gonna butcher what you were saying, but how everything, you know, turns back, but it's not the same place once it's seated back to that same point. It's almost, it reminds me of a Gemini quality, the expansion, like the concentric circles almost, but I'm seeing it in like a spiralized view. And so here we are hitting certain points in time that are echoing this past, and it's foretelling some future moment of, yeah, we've been here before, but what are we going to do about it now? Like, how are we going to do this different? I feel like with Pluto entering Capricorn, it's like there's an opportunity for us to make a different choice before we see something like this potentially play out again, you know? Just my 2 cents. Am I making sense? I hope I am.
So say that one more time about Pluto and Capricorn giving us an opportunity to make change.
Correct judgment. Yeah, it's gonna hit that mark. Pluto's gonna hit that mark that it initiated back when the how do I want to tie this all in? Pluto's going to hit 29 degrees again, and it's going to hit the same mark that it was whenever it was last square the nodes, right? And then we had an eclipse that was triggering this Chiron point that we see in this chart. And to me, that's indicating that here we are back at this kind of same point that we once were, but it looks a little bit different, but it's the same. Pluto metamorphosizes things. It's like it mutates them, right? So here we are experiencing people not being heard or listened to. And what are we going to do about it? And there's something rumbling in the collective conscious, right? That's like, hey, how do we change this? How do we, Saturn and Pisces, restructure, dismantle things? And Pluto being ruled by that Saturn, once it goes back into Capricorn, triggering those points where it squared the nodes, I think is it's make or break time. What are we going to do? Are we going to make a different choice? Are we going to revolt against the expectations of how we've been conditioned? Or is this going to be, this chart right here, going to be an echo of the future, you know, which is an echo essentially of the past? I hope I'm making sense. I don't know if I am. Okay, cool. But yeah, you can see that this chart is triggering it. It's the Chiron. If you go back to that eclipse where Chiron was conjuncted, I mean, we're seeing the same wound come up, but this time the North Node was on it saying, hey, Aries, how are we going to make new patterns of awareness, like on a collective level, you know? Like, how do we want to revolutionize the old revolution?
Bradley, were you gonna say?
Oh, just you know, like of course, speaking of the United States here and the Pluto return that we just went through, and then of course we did just have our Aries return, so that's even more relevant. And I think was it the U.S. chart has um or a Chiron return in Aries, excuse me. We have Chiron in Aries opposite Saturn in Libra, I believe, right? I'm sure we're going to get into that further down the road here, but just like just to I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I look forward to getting into this with both of you, but you know, like I don't know exactly what the Chiron return has been all about necessarily, you know, it, it's like for me, maybe it hasn't been revealed yet, but like Chiron, it's just like it hits such a deep place that I think like the wounds of the people, um, I mean, there's a lot of healing that's needed. We know that, you know, and maybe it's just that much more apparent. But um, also, we are getting close to because we're wanting to keep these to segments that people can enjoy in a gulp or a bite, so to speak. So we're gonna put this part one here to a close here in just a minute, and then we're gonna come back with a part two. Did you want to add anything before we transition here?
Thank you, Bradley. One thing I'd just like to point out is here we have or Pluto ingress to Aries, and this is in 17 ingress to Aquarius. I do this. You guys have to excuse me.
It's an A, don't worry.
Yeah, I am dyslexic, and this is 1778. So, what's interesting about this chart that stands out in time? I mean, there's an arch with an inscription from George Washington from 1778 that says, "Naked and starving as they are, we cannot enough admire the incomparable patience and fidelity of the soldiery." What a concept, a competent leader, a brave, courageous, competent leader. And it stands out in history. It's um, a bell ringer. I mean, it just stands out. And here you have, find my cursor, you have Pluto conjunct Gemini. And there's a permanence here. And remember how important the tongue is in regards to the heart, and how he spoke to the man and says, "You can do it," and how he made history and, changed the course of our nation for all we know. And then what I keep seeing in these revolutionary charts, aside from what the two of you are going to speak to, is Mars in Pisces. When Pisces, the force of Pisces is not to be misunderstood. Yes, it's subtle energy and it's subtle consciousness. But when you take all of the conviction of Pisces, really knowing right from wrong, and you combine it with Aries energy, it's explosive. Things happen. You'll find a lot of Chiron and Aries energy combined as well. What Bradley said about acknowledging the suffering of the wounds of the masses in the past. And look at this chart. The south node is in Capricorn and the north node is in Cancer, meaning looking for new ways to solve old problems, right? Old ways of warring, and looking for new ways to consult each other and look at more of a divine feminine form of protecting the earth and all of its children on all of its life. So you'll see themes repeat. And I don't know where you want to stop or start, Bradley, so I'll leave it to you.
Right, I guess we were going to stop right there, and I'm looking forward to continuing this in just a moment. Although I think you have to stop the recording for us now.